supported by Invest India and Startup India. Before we begin, I would like to quickly thank our partners, our session partner Refinitiv, our gold partners Reactor, Netherlands Embassy and Cybersprint, and our bronze partner Onfido and knowledge partner EY. With that, let us now quickly begin with our next session. This session is a panel discussion on how to manage cyber risk in business. And for the same, I would like to welcome our esteemed panelists, our moderator, Mr. Rakshit Tandon, Director, Co-Founder, Hackdev Technology Private Limited, Advisor of the Cyber Peace Foundation, Cybersecurity Consultant at Internet and Mobile Association of India, and advisory to the Cyber Crime Cell, State Police. Dr. Rakesh Goyal, MD, Sysman Computers, Mr. Santosh Khadsare, Digital Forensics Expert, Government of India, Mr. Pavan Kushwaha, Founder and CEO, Kratikal, Mr. Samir Datt, Founder and CEO, ForensicsGuru.com, and Mr. Pieter Jansen, CEO, Cybersprint. We welcome all of you, and without further ado, I would request Mr. Tandon to please take over.
Thank you so much, and namaskar, all of you. Thank you for joining this virtual conference. And I welcome all my esteemed panelists, Santosh sir, Samir sir, Rakesh sir, Pavan, and Pieter. And thank you all for making me the moderator for the session. As we all understand that cybersecurity risk has become a leading priority for organizations. And especially in this 1.5 year of pandemic, we have realized and we have seen that companies are now getting serious about cybersecurity risk. It was never proactive, it was always reactive, what we have seen, but now they are realizing that it is very important. It had been ransomware attacks, it has been email attacks with man in the middle, or it had been malware attacks or data breaches, which has been the biggest concern for organizations risking their reputation and losing their data of their valuable customers. It is very important for them to now understand that cybersecurity risk has to be given priority. And that is why we have this esteemed panel discussion today on how to manage cybersecurity risk. What also we have seen that the example of SolarWinds or the example of Khadsare, that now they are targeting third-party and fourth-party vendors or the vendors which are giving you services, and that is also becoming a serious concern. Cyber hygiene is important, cybersecurity policies in place is important, audits are important, and when something like this goes wrong, forensics is important. And this is what we bring to today in this esteemed panel. We have the best of people who have been into audits, who have been into security audits, compliances. We have people in our panel who are best forensic experts and have been into the field. And then we have the company itself, which is into defense and offense, both offensive and defensive hackings and solutions both, and witnessing the cyberspace, which is Cybersprint. So we have a wonderful panel today, and I hope all of you will be having an insightful and happy learning to the knowledge which we are going to share. So just setting the theme, as we understand the risks are there, we all understand the risks, how to manage these risks. I would first invite my first panelist, Pieter Jansen, who is a passionate cybersecurity specialist, CEO and founder of Cybersprint. With his experience as an ethical hacker and security manager, Pieter has worked both the offense and defense side of cybersecurity. Pieter saw new possibilities in developing a platform to automatically map the attack surface of organization. He started his own company driven by ambition to make the digital world more secure. His motto, defense is hard and offense is easy, forms the basis of Cybersprint platform. So Pieter, would like you to just share your thoughts on how to manage the cyber risk, and then we'll start with you, Pieter.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this warm welcome in India. I'm live from Amsterdam, very happy to be able to join this session today. Tackling the problem of cyber risk for business is a very broad topic, but we typically address it from the perspective that most organizations do not have cybersecurity as core business. It's just something that needs to be done because they want to perform their own business and run their own processes. And cybersecurity is typically an add-on that you also need to have. So when tackling the problem of cyber risk, for example, we typically see that organizations make a split where they focus on the most important risk that they need to fix immediately, We call them the dumpster fires. Something is on fire, you need to put it out. And that's very important to get started with that. And what we also say is about all the other types of risks that have been identified, the medium, the low risk, these could be technical risk, business risk, can be anything related to cyber. But we say don't bother chasing them. Don't follow up on all the individual incidents, because while you are fixing them, more will be created. Now, we typically advise organizations to tackle the most urgent things first, and then make sure that you've got your cybersecurity programs in place and use the rest of the risk, the mediums and the lows, purely as measurement of your traction, of your performance. Are you actually having results from your cybersecurity programs? And I think that's a dual combination that works for both very large financial institutions, because they've got a very large attack surface to protect, but it also works for the small organizations that maybe have a smaller attack surface to protect, but they also have less resources to spend on that. And I think that also comes down to the question, and you touched on third and fourth party or even fifth party risk. If you do not know what to protect, you cannot defend it. So most organizations skip that step. They look at the risk. Well, you can't look at risk if you do not know what you have. So it's very easy to miss something if you're not looking for it. And hackers never say, this is out of scope, so I'm not touching that. So these are my brief thoughts on this topic. I can talk for hours, but I'll leave it at this. Thank you.
Thank you, Pieter. Thank you. That was insightful. And as you rightly said, that we have to figure out the high risk first and then go to the low risk, as we have seen in recent incidences where people have ignored the risk and they have to pay heavy prices. So thank you, Pieter, for that. I would now like all of you to get introduced to Dr. Rakesh Goyal, who has 48 years of experience, out of his 30 years in IT security and cybersecurity. So he brings an experience of over 5,000 cybersecurity audits and consulting assignments since 1991. He has written 6 books and 50 papers related to IT security. His first book was called Computer Crimes, published in 1993. And I think I was not even introduced to the word cybersecurity at 1993. So Dr. Rakesh Goyal is an MD of Sysman Computers, which is empaneled both in certain since 2005 and with CCS since 2001. Academically, he is a gold medalist in engineering, gold medalist MBA from IIM Bangalore, and PhD in cybersecurity. He holds certifications such as CISA, CISM, CCCI, CFE, Chartered Engineer, CMC, and CDPP. So we are really very, very happy to have you on the panel, Dr. Rakesh Goyalji, and I would like to listen to your thoughts onto this issue with your immense experience to the domain. Dr. Rakesh Goyal, sir. So you are mute, sir. So please unmute, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Namaskar. Om Ganeshaya Namah. Let me start. I am speaking right now from Mumbai. As you know that everyone is working from home. I am also working from home. So let me start. The topic is that how to manage cyber risk in business or organization. Before managing, one must know what is a cyber risk. A lot of people doesn't know what is cyber risk. Let's define what is cyber risk. Any risk which is associated with the information system which may result in losses to the organization or individuals, which these losses can be financial, reputational, seizure of operations, life and liberty, physical, statutory or legal trouble, intellectual property, public disorder, or many more. These are the risks which are associated with information system if it is misused. Organizations are well aware of the risks and losses in the brick and mortar model forward due to business processes and laws defined over a period of time, let's say 20, 30, 50, 100 years. Even then, smart people find loopholes and take advantage of these things. One famous example is Harshad Mehta. I believe all of you know him. If not, just Google him. And yesterday there was a news item in Pioneer, that is a newspaper, which refer another example of India's Panama paper involving a big law firm and 30 who's and who's of the Indian business world. These are the risks for business, but owners know how to manage this due to well-oiled system of checks and controls, laws, lawyers, chartered accountants, lobbyists, power brokers, and internal processes. But now map this to the cyber information system, cyber world. The risk is that a hacker, let me use this word hacker as a loose in a broader sense, any perpetrator who can take advantage of loopholes in which in whole gamut of IT system to the detriment of the target organization, which may be business or which may be government or education or health or any other or individual also, and breaks into the system, and organization loses money, reputation, closure of business, all those things, or even harassment. Sometimes we talk all them trolling or stalking, and these type of things are happening. Are organization ready for this? How organization can manage cyber risk? I'm not going to specific what cyber risk are, because we all knows what they are, whether they are related to application or infrastructure or systems or process or human or privacy or data or disaster or those things. These are happening day in and day out. Which we have bifurcated cyber risk into various sub categories. To manage cyber risk, organization must know what type of cyber risk they are exposed to. What is the risk surface? For that, they need to know the risk and do a risk assessment. How many have done that? Even a primitive risk assessment, or even know the list of risks? The answer is a very few does this of their own. Some do it due to regulatory or government pressure, but bare minimum to satisfy the regulator only. And research example we have seen about Twitter, and most do not do it. The question is how they manage cyber risk. Well, in my experience during cyber audits for last 30 years and since 16 years as a certain empaneled auditor, I have seen and felt cyber security from prenatal to adolescence to teens to getting younger. That is how the cyber security is getting younger. I define cyber security maturity organization in three categories. What these categories are, let's say A category or first category, I have seen few organizations who take cyber security, cyber risk very seriously from the top level or in the corporate environment, let's say till the board level. They manage the risk seriously and reasonably honorably. They have gradually created a security ecosystem which has matured reasonably well over a period of time. They scan technology and risk environment regularly, scan their internal individual assets, responding to feedback done from other mistakes, spend money on security, create security culture, have created a response mechanism and respond to any signal or risk quickly, and so on. This is the top layer. But what is quantum? I'll come to that. Second category is B category. This is mostly, not definitely all, regulated entity undertaking cyber security under pressure from the regulator or any government or customer. They are exposed to cyber risk, and we hear many stories of system breakdown, disruption of services, data available in dark web, fine imposed by regulator. This is happening regularly. And I have seen some time back a specific regulator imposed that you should have a CISO, and they have designated the operation person as a CISO, who either doesn't know what is cyber security or have a conflict of interest. But with the stick of regulator and quite a lot of bad publicity, a lot of people are taking it seriously and going better, and still a lot of things to be traveled. And there is third category, C category. Most of the other or unregulated entity doesn't know what is the dimension of cyber security and risk associated with that. And some are big names also. There is no pressure on them for cyber security except some losses here and there. For them, it is a story of 6 blind men and an elephant. You can guess their preparedness when someone tells you that we have installed a firewall, so we are secure. We have a latest anti-malware, so we are secure. Oh boy. But when an incident happens, it comes out that people doesn't take backups. Locks are disabled. There is no hardening of OS and firewall. Documentation doesn't exist. And this happened with a company who call them Lily White. And that's where people like Rakshit and Santosh have a huge task cut out for them to create awareness. It is almost similar and applicable to ABC analysis of inventory, procurement, marketing, costing, etc. Where A-class items volume wise 10% but have 70% values. That is happening in cybersecurity. 20% B-class items have 20% value, and 70% of C-class have 10% value. So that is what ABC classification. I am stopping here as my allotted time is getting already over. So I will discuss further as Rakshit Bhai will
great,
me
sir.
further.
We will. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. It was very well explained. All the different categories of companies how they manage the cyber risk. Now, without wasting time, I would request as team panelist Santosh sir. Santosh Khadsare sir, he is an InfoSec and a DFIR professional who specializes in digital forensics. He was the head of digital forensic lab at Certain, Ministry of Electronics and IT. He is a BE Electronics and Telecom and possesses additional qualifications such as CHFI, CEH, RHCSA, IVTA, CMU, Pittsburgh, USA, Advanced Cyber Forensic Course CDAC, Cyber Crime Investigator, Cyber Crime Intervention Officer, and Access Data Certified Professional. Santosh sir was judged among the top 3 scholars during the MDI ISAC National Cybersecurity Scholar Program for the year 2020 and was awarded the Best Innovative Paper titled The Role of Digital Forensic in Industry 4.0. 20 plus years of experience, rich experience in digital forensics and cyber laws, information security, audit. He is known as a digital forensic community for his experience, skill sets, and mentorship qualities. He has been a speaker to many national and international conferences. Sir, Santosh sir, we would like to hear your thoughts on how to manage cyber risk in businesses. Santosh sir, I think there is some network issue at his end. Santosh sir, no. All right, no issues. So Santosh sir will be back with us as soon as he reconnects. I would now, again, a very dear friend and a very, very good expert, Samir Datt sir, who is the founder and CEO of ForensicGuru.com since 1999, 30 plus years of experience from USA, UK, and India. He's the president of Digital Investigators Associate, author of Learning Network Forensics, and published in UK, alumni of NIT Rourkela, IIT Kanpur, and IIFT Delhi, fellow of the Indian Police Foundation, a TEDx speaker, a visiting faculty to NPA, CBI, NICSF, Delhi, and many other, angel investor for product startups in cyber forensic and investigation field. So, Samir sir, over to you for your thoughts on how do we manage cyber risk. So you're not audible, you're mute. Sir.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be among friends. I have a few slides which I would like to share, if you permit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank
sir.
you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Are they visible?
Yes, sir. Visible.
Yes.
Excellent. Right. I usually start most of my presentations with new times breed new crimes. But these days, it's COVID times breed more crimes. Because all of us, as Dr. Goyal also mentioned, we're all working from home. We're all, dispersed all over the globe. So what is happening is that our attack surface has increased for most organizations. We are more exposed to employees accessing the internet in a rather unregulated way and are opening up holes everywhere, which may, cause us a lot of pain at a later stage. So that's why I say COVID times breed more crimes. Let's have a quick look at the NIST cybersecurity framework, where, we are all aware that to mitigate cyber risk, we need to, identify the risk, protect from the threats that emerge from the risk, detect what is happening, respond to it, and recover from it. So there are 5 cornerstones or pillars, that the ISO 27001 framework has, and these are needed for managing cybersecurity risk. So the first is, of course, risk identification, and this is actually very crucial. And something, that most organizations, wake up a little late to, but definitely, post-event, risk. But the threats and the level of the threat, and then the extent of the risk and what needs to be done from a vulnerability reduction perspective are all things that need to be looked at. This needs to be followed by threat reduction, consequence mitigation, and then we need to enable the cyber security outcome. So end of the day, these 5 things need to be handled when we're looking at cyber security risk. So when we look at it from an incident response perspective, we need to start from the events that occur. We need to isolate, contain, and investigate those risks. And investigation is where guys like us come in. We are the cyber forensics people, the digital forensics people, and then we need to report on the incident and carry out a long-term post-incident analysis, impact assessment, and what went wrong and how do we fix it, ensure that it doesn't happen in the future, that kind of stuff. So we move from the IR part to the digital forensics part to arrive at that. Lots of stuff happening. You need to identify the event, the crime. We need to resolve signatures, detect profiles, and detect anomalies. Based on complaints, monitor systems, lots of stuff. Similarly, most of its data that is collected in terms of evidence, digital evidence rather, has to be managed properly, and it has to be managed in a manner that allows it to be presentable in a court of law.
In the court of law.
Yeah. So you're looking at things like chain of custody. You need to have imaging technologies. You need to work out time sinks and things like that. We've had cases where, like Rakshit ji mentioned, that people don't maintain logs. We've had a very interesting case of a very famous airline which received a bomb threat over email, and their logs were out of sync by about 32 minutes. And the moment they realized their logs were out of sync, when the email was received, they fixed the logs, they fixed the server's time lag. And then it became, what would have narrowed down to something like, say, 24, 25 IP suddenly became, 600 IP addresses to investigate. So preservation of evidence is really crucial. We need to collect the evidence in a manner that is, of course, acceptable by courts of law. We need to use approved methods, software, hardware. We need to have the legal authority to do it, and lots of stuff like that. We need to carry out an examination of all the evidence that we have collected. We need to have traceability. We need to have repeatability, validation. We need to be able to filter the stuff, match patterns, discover the hidden data, and extract it. Carry out analysis of all that. Again, preservation is always a matter of concern. Again, traceability is always a matter of concern. And then, we need to do data mining. We need to build timelines. We need to look at links and things like that. We follow it up by ultimate preservation of the results of our investigation, the documentation, bring in expert testimony if it goes to court. And one thing we need to, understand from a corporate perspective is that anything can go to court. As working with a very large corporation, a multinational, and they got a, inquiry, a wrongful termination case from an ex-employee who was terminated about 7 years ago. And that person, he brought in that case, and all the people he was reporting to and all had already left the organization. And this person produced evidence which they could not find on their servers, which was saying that he was praised for doing this and that and all that, and he was wrongfully terminated. So these kind of things, you need to have preservation, and very important thing. Again, what is the mission impact? You need to recommend countermeasures, and we need to, of course, interpret all that thing. And then finally, go ahead and take decisions. So there's a quick look at some risk mitigation and investigation tools. The slander that is on the net, you can, certainly you will find that, people are posting stuff about an organization related to an incident on the net, which you don't want. They'll be talking about, oh, this breach, has got so many people's data exposed, things like that. There'll be data out there. You'll have to be looking at all the open source intelligence that is out there. You need to look at, if, especially in cases of a ransomware where, money has been paid as through cryptocurrencies, they need to be, investigated, traced. You need to figure out what's happening if you want to. These are also issues. You need to look at, disk and media forensics, where you might find, data that is leaving the network, exfiltration, or even, data theft from an internal insider perspective, so many things. You need to handle incident response, and you need to also look at data exfiltration. These are all crucial things which you will have to look at. So this is just a quick overview of things like that. And hopefully, this makes some sense. I'll stop for now and we can continue. with the
Thank you,
conversation.
Samir. Thank you, Samir, sir. Thank you very much. I think this was very insightful to understand the steps of incidents and forensics and how prepared you can be for your organization with that wonderful toolkit which you shared. So coming to back to Santosh, sir, we have introduced you when you were a little disconnected. So I would straight away come to you to give your thoughts on how do we manage cyber risk in our businesses with your experience.
Good morning to good afternoon to all of you. And already the panelists before me have already introduced regarding how cybercrime or cyber security has to be handled at the enterprise level. Since the topic of discussion is related to financial frauds, I would give a different, you can say, different angle to this with respect to digital forensic perspective. Now, if you see financial frauds as such, you must have seen there may be a low-level kinds of frauds, such as if you see there's a QR code scan, or say some phishing, or SIM swapping, or some kind of frauds are there which result in financial loss to an individual. But if you see the frauds which are happening at, you can say at the bank level or at a higher entity level, at the, you can say, nationalized bank level, I would like to just tell you a case study which will make it more clear to you regarding how forensics plays an important role where this financial fraud kind of a scenario comes into play. Samir has already rightly brought out the IR part and the forensics, how they are interrelated. And what he was trying to tell, I would just put it is something called as a forensic readiness. If there's no forensic readiness of any entity, the financial frauds, investigation will go haywire or they will not go to a conclusion if things are not in place. In one of such incident, I had got a call from a CISO of a bank, and he informed me that he had lost some say around 50 plus crore of rupees in a span of you can say 24 hours, and the money was siphoned off or it just vanished from the account of a small cooperative bank. So I inquired, did he get any intimation or something like that? So nothing was happened. It was a sophisticated kind of an attack which had taken place. But one input which he gave me, which was very critical, that his bank was connected to another nationalized bank, and that is how money was transacted on a daily basis so that they could distribute to its customers. So it was a large nationalized bank, and then this cooperative bank which was connected to this particular nationalized bank. And when this incident happened of siphoning, both the banks started blaming each other that, okay, the problem is at your end. You have been actually compromised, or the attack has taken at your place. So when the forensics actually took place on that particular small cooperative bank and also other large nationalized bank, which of course agreed for forensics only with some caveats and initially disagreeing to this particular carrying out forensics, it was realized that this small cooperative bank was compromised by a you can see a spear phishing attack, and in turn it had also compromised the nationalized bank gateway which was in between them. So, from forensic point of view, this is just one small example I'm giving you how financial fraud at the higher level or at the banking level takes place. And apart from that, you must have also heard about the various frauds. I'll speak specifically of India, which have taken place and which are in the national media. So when forensics has to take place, there are various aspects to be taken into consideration. One is if it's in the present crime scene, you can say the live forensics plays a very important role. If the systems are in switch on condition, then live forensics also plays a very important role where if the systems cannot be removed and taken to investigation, that is if they are working in RAID, or the servers which cannot be pulled out from a bank and just taken for investigation. The third part is what is seen is nowadays the ransomware. Already people have mentioned about it. The fileless malware which are there and which are executing this kind of attacks and leaving no trace and making it difficult, especially in the financial frauds. So financial frauds are taking place and they are taking place rampantly, as also people brought out COVID times. People have become more reckless and they're trying out various ways. The only way what can be done is, like I said, forensic readiness and digital forensic people playing I'll say proactive role. Till now we are playing a reactive role, but I think we have to integrate ourselves with the IR also, incident response teams also, which of course they are the part of. But then only the financial frauds can be controlled or some mitigation can take place in that. I think this is for start off. I think this is enough from my side. We can continue with that. Thank you.
you, Santosh, sir. That was insightful. Thank you so much. And I agree with you that, and also one point which comes to my mind is that now it is becoming important for organizations, for their IT team, especially to understand the incident response, the fundamentals of getting forensic readiness, so that when unfortunately, if an incident happens and the investigator comes to your end, the IT team or the backup support team of the company should be able to give the right evidence in the right form. And that forensic readiness is, I think, one of the key things which Santosh sir and both Samir sir have highlighted. Pavan Kushwaha, our another esteemed panelist. Pavan is the founder and CEO of India's leading cybersecurity startup, Kratikal Tech Private Limited. He's an alumnus of MNIT Allahabad. He's an entrepreneur, security researcher, developer, speaker, and a part-time hacker. What is a part-time hacker? I'm a full-time hacker. He was CTO and product head for 1.4 years at a healthcare e-commerce company, Goyal, acquired by 1MG. He also worked as the head of cybersecurity for Impact QA for 3 years. He has authored 6 cybersecurity books and 1 patent pending. Has trained more than 15,000 plus students from 130 plus nations. A wonderful, illustrious profile, Pavan Kushwaha. I welcome you to the panel, and I would like to hear your thoughts.
Thank you so much. So I'll start with, I was reading an article in the morning itself regarding cyber frauds, especially in India. So the total cases that we had in 2009 to 2019, which is around almost, let's say 2 years back, which when the pandemic is not happening, is around 1.17 lakhs, which is reported in India, especially in online banking fraud. So there are two kind of scenarios that we can look at. One is the organizational cyber risk that we're talking about, especially when it comes to finances. The other we're looking at as an individual level. Think like a farmer who earns around 2 lakh rupees in the entire year, and he just shared one OTP and then his entire thing is gone. So let's just look at the two things. One is the organization cyber risk, what you have, or a financial risk, and let's just look at the individual cyber risk that we have. There are a lot of systems which is being designed, and there are a lot of things which is being done by the Indian government and the entities which are working on this area. The total amount that was actually got, I'll say fraudulent amount which is being left, or the total amount which is being escaped from these banks is 615 crore. And this is again, I'm talking about till 2019. So this could be but much more data, and we're just still looking for the data, especially from a fraud. Now, think like, again, I'll just divide into two, like I mentioned, I just divided into two parts. One is the individual cyber risk management or a financial risk management. The other is organization. For an organization, I think the other speaker has beautifully described it, that you need to identify the attack surfaces. You need to identify where your data lies. Not only this, you identify risk. So when I say risk means, so for some organization, there's some data which may not be critical, which may not be putting up a very important role in let's say a fraud or a risk, or especially on that side. They can just define it from their own perspective. So the first thing that it should do is identify the services, attack surfaces. For example, let's say this is from an organization standpoint. This could be their employees. This could be their people or the customers. This could be their vendors. This could be their systems or let's say endpoints, whatever they're using. They have to see each and everything and categorize those risks. Once they do that, what they need to put at is to make sure that they're managing correctly. They need to put at a number. Okay, this number helps them out to see what is on the priority, how much they can lose, and what kind of appetite they have to actually go for that risk. So there are multiple things which comes to, even if you follow the NIST framework, where you protect, then you identify, protect, then monitor, respond, and then you again recover the data or whatever things that you're doing from a risk standpoint. But let's just go to the individual level as well. So the individuals again need to identify what kind of fraud can happen with them. So it could be a credit card, debit card, internet banking, or whatever ways, or a mobile banking app that they are using. So these are two very important aspects that we need to look at. Like Samir was mentioning on the vulnerabilities identification, the risk identification, there has to be certain things that every other organization has to get in. There are 700 million internet users in India right now. there are around more than 60 million SMEs, which employs, I think, 40 to 60% of the people in India, which have some access to, I'll say, basic access to digital tools. And what we have seen so far with them is they sometimes are being, so there are multiple things that they happen with them. Sometimes they do not have an idea how to operate a normal email account. There's an IT guy who configured the Outlook in the system. They are still receiving those BEC compromise attacks. They are still receiving those things. They're replying to that they're still receiving those mails. So what we need to look at is, and there's one more thing that I think, sir, you mentioned, that they need to identify how much they can spend, and the tools which actually manages this cyber risk, which identify this cyber risk, has to be in their I'll say in preview. So basically they can actually go and check those tools without putting up a lot of burden. What we need to really look at is an innovation, especially in a risk space, and to make sure that we cater to those SMEs, make sure we build a robust system by which they can identify. Basically, they can follow the entire NIST frameworks to make sure that the India's SME is digitally ready, which actually contribute to the India's GDP on a very higher level. So that's where I'll end this note. I have some more data, but I'll let it for the discussion.
Very good, Pavan. Thank you so much. I think you rightly mentioned that risk to organizations and individuals both need to be understood in a comprehensive manner. And as you were rightly mentioning that we have seen a tremendous increase in types of fraud. I was last also evening, I was having a workshop on the various types of new trends in financial fraud. And recently you must have heard that some land registries were stolen from the registry department, and a clone biometric with a rubber stamp was produced. And just using the AEPS, that is the Aadhaar enabled payment system, they were able to access money, and they looted almost, we had 43 FIRs in 3 days where lakhs of rupees have gone out. So the modus operandi was simple. They could steal. So it's not only the online data which is bringing risk and creating a fertile ground for cyber criminals, but even the offline data which is with the organization can create a fraud, which has been proven by the AEPS system, where only the Aadhaar number and biometric was required. So it's becoming very interesting, and I would like to put up some questions to our esteemed panelists. And to start, again, I'll come back to Pieter with two very small crisp questions, and I think you'll be the best one to answer with your experience. How do you see typically that business tackle cyber risk, and what are the top trends of cyber risk for businesses? If you could answer this, Pieter. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. The trends are typically impacted by the vision bias. So what have I worked on last week, and which were the most prolific cases? But if you look back, say the past 1.5 years, say December 2019, it kind of started with the Citrix vulnerabilities, which in the Netherlands had a huge impact, because in the Netherlands, people work from home a lot. And suddenly there was a news announcement that if you are running Citrix, you probably need to either turn it off or protect it with a firewall. And the result was we had the largest traffic jams on the road because everybody needed to go to the office. So what we see is that the fast pace of digitization, it already happened before COVID last year in the Netherlands. But we also see that the dependence on the technology has suddenly caused a lot of new types of risks. So in the beginning last year of the crisis in May, we saw a huge increase in online crime versus physical offline crime. A lot of fraud as a service supplier started up. They did not exactly start during the crisis, but they already were providing services the years before. But what happened is that people were looking to find other means of making money, and without any technical skills, it was still possible to, through Telegram, for example, get in touch with cybercrime as a service operators. And that kind of works on a multi-level marketing skill. It grows exponentially. So that is one of the trends that we've seen that is very impactful. And another trend in terms of, again, taking Citrix as an example, the SolarWinds case, we are now looking at some new SolarWinds issues with the new ServView vulnerabilities that were found or announced a couple of days ago. What we see there is that, and I think one of the other speakers already announced it or mentioned it, that people put a firewall in place and then they think they're safe. They're gone. And in the Netherlands, we've got a word, I'm not sure how international it is, but we don't have elephants here, but we have something called elephant path. So if you put a fence somewhere, just like an elephant, people will find their way. They will make their own path. So if you put a firewall in front of something, people will just take their credit card, call their friends at the cloud company, and they will set up the infrastructure for them. And they will put the data in that cloud infra or a cheap virtual server somewhere. So shadow IT is a big trend that we see. This is shadow IT because it's not known by the official IT, but it is still IT that is holding the data of the company. And if there is a breach on a piece of shadow IT, it's still a liability to the company. Their reputation gets damaged. They have to report the data leak. They will have to pay the fine. And they cannot say, well, it was shadow IT, so we're not going to pay. No, it doesn't work like that. So the combination of shadow IT with these new vulnerabilities that are being found, I think that is the trend that we see, which is a very powerful one, because the first thing when such news breaks, so Microsoft Exchange last week, or the printer bug, print nightmare, the first thing the board asks, because they see it on the news, does this affect us? And people are typically then looking internally, no, it's not on the list, or yes, it's on the list and we covered those systems. But everybody forgets about the shadow IT. And it makes sense that you forget about your shadow IT because it is shadow IT. And that is a typical trend in terms of risk, cyber risk, where most of the big incidents actually happen. People think they are secure. Yes, everything they see is secure. If you don't see it, you cannot secure it. And I think that concludes my points on the trends. And another thing is the speed, but I'll get back to that later. I'll first give some room for other speakers too. Happy to hear their thoughts as well.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much for putting those top trends of the risk, as you all heard. And now I have a question for Rakesh, sir, Dr. Rakesh, because you've been into audits and you have interacted with many organizations. What is the status of IT security in various organizations and how the organizations can manage cybersecurity? If you could answer this in a simple, as you wish. Mute, sir.
Say you're mute.
Sir, you unmute, please.
Yes, I'm doing it. Okay.
Sir. Yes, sir.
I am muted so that there is no echo. So
yes, sir.
as I said, there are three types of organizations. First category, who are reasonably well matured, they are managing it. They have got a structured process of making decision. They create a long-term business plan, then they create a long-term IT plan, they create a short-term IT plan, they create a IT security plan and align to them, and they create a budget for them and go in a structured way. That is, they have reached a level of maturity. If we map it to that CMM type of maturity level, they have reached level 3, 4 type of, may not be 5, because cyber security is an endless, bottomless pit. Whatever you put, it goes somewhere. So they are managing well, and particularly I have seen when after Corona, when the work from home is there, they are able to shift to that new work environment from office to home, where the risk surface was in a very short period and a very planned way, in a structured way. That is one type of category. They are managing really well in the current, given the current technology environment. Second is, they are managing ad hoc. They have got some budget, because some budget has to be given. There is a, let me use the word danda or stick from the regulator or government. They have to manage it. And recently we have seen how the stick works when Twitter has to say, okay, now we will put a grievance officer. So without that, it doesn't work. So somewhere they have to be hit where it hits them hard. So they put some budget, but when the risk surface increased, and that is again seen when the work from home culture came, or work from home, not culture, it was a forcibly they have to manage new normal.
The new normal.
And good thing is that it has not happened with the banks. Otherwise, a lot of skeletons would have come out. So banks were also still working from the from the office, they were essential
Bank
services.
only.
Banks only. But when you go to other entities, right, like insurance companies or education or health also was, but at least back office was not there. So their decision making is ad hoc. Okay, do something, do something, and again they had real problem when the things have gone haywire, and there's where the lot of awareness creation is required. They are just not there. There's a big cutout for you. And third is category which are uh, having a lotus type of thing, lotus eaters. We are all okay. We don't even want
Take care.
insurance. We don't want insurance. If something happens, it happened to the neighbor one, not me. Uh, when we will see when it will come to us. So that is another type
And
of things which they are managing. So that is how they are managing, and the things are pathetic in that space. I hope I answered my question.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. You answered. And one more small question was that, in your experience, who is the key person who takes cybersecurity decisions?
See, in the first type of organization, it is a board who takes the decision. It is the whole process who takes the decision. In second type of environment is a CISO, and sometimes CISO works under CIO, or sometimes CISO works under CFO, and there's a lot of conflict of interest, and they always fight. This is required, that is required, and that fight goes on endlessly. So they take a decision, and that is an ad hoc decision. And some hardware or software company come give a presentation, and they are uh, impressed by them, and they say, okay, we buy them. So that also takes decision. And third category, the decision taker is only after the incident happens. Before incident,
Only
we
after.
are all okay. There is no money for cyber security.
No money.
It is a unnecessary
Thank you. Thank you,
overhead.
sir.
And
Great, sir.
after that, everything is available with you. All the resources. You do whatever you like. That
Sir.
is that is how the
Sir,
decision
so
is taken.
we'll keep the time in mind. Now only 10 minutes are left. So Santosh sir, quickly, what are the types of cases being received at CFL, especially related to financial frauds?
Okay, Rakshit, firstly, the cases related to financial fraud which comes to the CFL are when an incident happens, when there's a major crime which has happened, such as the bank has lost money, right? Due to any kind of attack, it may be a compromise of the servers, maybe an insider attack or some this thing. So that is one major kind of you can say types of cases come to the CFL and which are taken. Another types of cases which comes to are basically related to, you can say, nowadays the new crimes which are coming at QR code crimes or SIM
Yes.
swapping. So they, but the priority given to them is less. If I ask you, the priority given to them is less because there are so many crimes that's happening in
It's
India.
in volumes. It is in volumes.
So volume in terms of volume that we hardly get time to look after the second kind of the low level type of priority crime. So they are handled by the police itself or the investigating officers at their level by going to CDR analysis or some other kind of only if there's a very critical case, then does it come to us. But yes, ransomware type of also crimes are coming. Then, as I said, whenever we go for an incident, right? Every incident has happened in a bank. So that is, it's an impromptu. No one knows if something has happened. We only come to know when we actually do the initial preliminary investigations. So those have kept our hands full, and because there are very few labs, as you know, in the country, and to handle such kind of incidents.
Sir. Thank you, sir. Samir, sir, what happens when a corporate comes across a suspected insider fraud? What are the precautions they need to take to prevent legal exposure in terms of a counter court case? So you have been into many
Yes.
forensic investigations. So with corporate,
Yes.
especially, this is a problem.
This is actually quite a common problem because when there is somebody who is being accused of wrongdoing, they feel that the best thing to do is take offense as a measure. And corporates are usually soft targets because they would like to settle this out of court rather than going into extended litigation because the cost of doing that is a lot higher. So a lot of the insiders who get caught are actually can and have done in the past, this kind of an activity. So I would say that for a corporate, they need to sort of look at it from the perspective of the first thing is gathering their evidence in a proper and structured manner to ensure that the data is untampered, with the proper chain of custody, in a manner, that is going to be acceptable in courts of law, wherever the jurisdiction is. So especially if you're looking at India, for example, it needs to be admissible in Indian courts and so on and so forth. Then you need to also look at, say, just, a simple example, say, data on a, say, endpoint, for example, create a forensic image. We see a lot of times the IT departments just jump in and start working on it. And end of the day, it's not and yes. And then the corporate is on the back foot saying that the data has been planted rather than this is there done by that guy who's stolen the data. So there are so many things that they need to look at, and I mean I could go on for hours. But broadly, yes, focus on this and preserve the evidence. Yeah.
Thank you, Samir sir. Pavan, we have been seeing a lot of man-in-the-middle attacks, and so many exporters and people who are connected to foreign countries and doing business, they have been victimized to this email-based cyber attack. So, do you think implementation of DMA-RC with the right policy should already be considered or declared as a mandatory compliance, like GDPR for every organization, so that we can avoid prevailing? Because companies, they don't realize, they just put in an email and they start business and then they become a victim. So what are your views on this, Pavan?
So basically, I think GDPR is one of my favorite subject. And the reason is pretty much simple. The FBI claims that they have lost around $5 billion in business email compromise. And majorly because of the incorrect implementation of GDPR. Sorry, this DMARC or the DMARC, which is a domain message authentication protocol. So basically what it does is it makes sure that no one can spoof your domain. So basically to the audience, I'm not sure if you guys know or not, I can actually send any email from your email ID to anyone if you do not have correct DMARC records. By the way, that's also possible, especially when it's come to phone as well. But in a phone, you don't have a control. But in an email, you have a control and a well-defined system which is being developed by big giants like Google and then PayPal, and there are a lot of companies combined together started this particular protocol. So basically, this particular protocol, like I mentioned, the FBI, because they have a data, they mentioned that this is the I'm talking about some of the companies that I've literally worked with them. They receive the email that we have hacked your account, and they send email from their email ID. We have hacked your account, and this is what we have done. There are few things which looks very dangerous when you receive them, and then they are panicked and they ask to send some money or bitcoins to some other people. That's one of the things. The other thing that has generally happened is that a vendor sending you an email, putting up an PEC. There's a very smart attack also where they send from your email ID, but the reply to email is different, and no one looks at the reply to email. That's where the man in the middle comes in the action. So man in the middle, in a layman terms, is someone who's sitting in between and tracking both the conversation, what you're sending from this side and what you're sending from that side. So what they look at is they actually do this kind of frauds very easily. Think like this: someone is actually spoofing your identity. And that's where the DMARC plays a very important role. This is already mandatory from RBI in India, like it's a compliance to have a DMARC record. It should be make a mandate because this is just a protection. And believe the important part with this is obviously you need some tools to analyze the data, but to put up DMARC record, you don't have to spend a single rupees. It's just a normal guidance that you need to make sure.
And need to mention, right?
Yes, almost. If you go to our website kdmark.com, you can generate a DMARC record and put into DNS. That's it. That's all you need to make sure the domain is corrected. So I think this should be made as a mandate by the entire world community that okay, we're not going to accept your email unless you put your DMARC report. Not only this, but DMARC, apart from DMARC reports, there is a one more implementation called BIMI, brand indicator for messages. So right now what's is being happening is whenever you send email, so the image that you see, let's say my name is Pavan, so you see in Gmail P instead of image. So what they will be doing is they will be putting up an image from the DNS itself. There's some tech protocol which is being developed where you can, whenever a message is being sent from the right sender, you will see that image so that you can identify that this is not a fraud or a spoof email. What this eventually will do is that if you look at the data, 90 to 95% of the attacks which are happening currently across the world, and I think this is what awareness plays an important role, is because of people. Either people clicked on link, either people did something wrong. If we build this system and if we implement the system is already built. If the organization, small SMEs can implement the system, we can actually drill down from 90% to up to certain level, which is kind of, we can say, okay, this is a bare minimum level, or this is a kind of risk that we can manage
You can
on that
mitigate.
side.
Yes.
So yeah, so
Thank you,
basically
Pavan.
it's
Thank
very
you. Yes.
important. There is one
Important. I got your point.
yeah, this is last one point. From a receiving point, so there's a two factor in DMARC. One is sender, other is receiver. From a receiving point, almost 80 to 90% receivers are DMARC compliant. The issue is with the senders who buys domains. So please go get your DMARC first.
DMARC
That's very,
right?
very important. Yeah.
So very important takeaway from Pavan. And one last quick question. I know we have already exceeded time. 1 minute is already gone. But Pieter, there's a question for you that if you want to tackle ransomware kind of attack, moving data to cloud like OneDrive, Teams, Google Drive, is it enough to reduce the impact? Pieter.
Yeah, I missed the connection was bad.
All right. So question was that to tackle ransomware kind of attack, moving data to cloud, OneDrive, Teams, Google Drive, is it enough to reduce the impact?
I think these tools, they will not reduce the impact, but they will improve the resolution because you get free backups with those tools. So it's very easy to recover from attacks. And I think protecting against ransomware is impossible in the long term. Focus on resilience, focus on recovery. If you have that in order, then cloud comes with that security by default.
So I think just to add one more thing, the other thing in ransomware, especially in case of ransomware, because we do simulate a lot of ransomware, we have around more than 4 million plus employees who's which is using our platform regularly to simulate those kind of attacks. So basically, what we actually need to do is a security awareness is a very important aspect. And I know Rakshit sir is doing a very great job, especially in this space. But the security awareness is something that actually can help you out to reduce this. Like Pieter mentioned, there is no actually solution to get a ransomware apart from this, the awareness, which actually reduces your attack surface. It only reduce the risk up to a certain level. But again, Pieter is absolutely right on that sense. Yeah.
Thank you so much, all the panelists. And I think the key takeaways are very clear to all our dear audience that cyber hygiene is important, cyber awareness is important, resilience is important, and you also need to understand that which category of company you are. So as rightly mentioned by Dr. Rakesh, that there are 3 types of company, you have to put yourself in that. You also, as Pavan rightly mentioned, that you have to understand that attacks can be on the businesses, but it can be on individual, and that is also increasing, and that also adds to the security of the organization. Samir sir and Santosh sir have also mentioned that why forensic readiness is important and how it is important for businesses to understand where is the evidence, how to procure and preserve the evidence, and how to rightly preserve and hand it over to, so that investigations can be done properly. So it is not only the attack vector, but also the incident response vector, very important for organizations. And at the end, yes, awareness is very important. So thank you, Pieter. Thank you to Samir sir, Santosh sir, Dr. Rakesh sir, and dear Pavan for having this enlightening session. And I hope the audience is have also had an enlightening session. So all of you, thank you so much, and namaskar. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to
Jai
all
Hind,
the
sir.
panelists for joining in. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
and we will be back with yet another session shortly. So please stay tuned, everybody else. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam.